Cloud. All right. Okay, cool. Yeah. So hi, everyone. Today is January 16th. This is the cloud provider extraction migration subproject meeting, bi-weekly. So yeah, let's just get started. Let me open the agenda. Okay. Let's try screen share, see if this works. I feel so bad making you guys like guinea pig for getting Zoom to work. One sec.
Come on, we write Kubernetes. The rest of the world is our guinea pig.
Sorry, my audio just cut out. One sec.
Well, while Andrew is working that out, why don't we go through what's probably our top priority items? So, Nick, do you have any status on the credential provider cap?
Yeah, sorry, just touched the light switch. I'm working on the next draft of that right now. I've gotten some feedback on the document itself. I've spoken to a number of people. The SIG auth that I was going to attend to discuss it was last week. It was the last week of my paternity leave, so I missed that. But I was discussing with Mike Denise offline and some people at Amazon. So I think I have at least with the random people that I've discussed with and the comments online, it seems like there's consensus that something similar to what we have now is the right approach, or at least an approach that people seem to think is reasonable. And just as a reminder, it was taking there's in Kubernetes, it's not quite an API object, but it looks like an API object that defines the interface between client Go and some binary that gets exec. And the existing interface is specific for it's called the credential provider, and it provides credentials for like HTTP authentication. But my proposal was to sort of revamp this for to add Docker credential support. One of the comments that I got was that there's at least one configuration option that doesn't apply, so it would be better for me to just fork those structs, I guess, for lack of a better term. So that's what I'm going to do in my next proposal, is just kind of fork it's going to be very similar. It'll just be forked. And then the other bit of feedback that I'm thinking about is there's actually there's a number of tools out there that do a very similar thing. So it's called like the Docker Credential Helper protocol. And they're binaries that are meant to be executed by, for example, the Docker CLI, which go and do something and return credentials back to be sent to the Docker registry. So that was suggested to me by someone here at Amazon. So I'm considering, it's basically, if you look at that auth config struct that's in the KEP, it's basically a subset of that. So if I was able to use that, then there would potentially be already these tools that we could integrate with. So that's a thought. So to summarize, I should have a second draft of this out by the end of this week.
Okay, sounds good. One paranoia point, and I think it's fine, but I know SIG node is basically getting further and further away from Docker and more to just vanilla container D. This is not going to have any issues with that, right?
No. There's nothing there's nothing Docker specific about anything, and yeah, I'll make sure that there isn't. There's the Docker credential provider or Docker credential helper protocol thing that I was talking about. I'll make sure that that doesn't have anything specific to Docker, but it shouldn't, because the there's two ways to authenticate to Docker registries. There's the username, like the basic auth, and then there's a newer JOT OAuth sort of flow in the Docker registry HTTP API v2, and yeah, I think that those are supported by more than just Docker. If I'm not mistaken,
Is there code behind it, or is it just an API spec?
both.
Okay.
So
And if there's code behind it, is it under a foundation or just under something where I'm wondering who owns the PR merge authority? You know, what organization? Is it like CNF or is it Docker?
a good question. Good question. I'll
That would be a concern to me.
Yeah, I'll look into that. And there's tools, like there's an implementation for various cloud providers that have image registries, and like I know there's a GCP one or GCR, there's a ECR, so yeah, I don't know.
Right. So
I'll look into that and see. I think it was definitely like proposed, and the initial implementation was all done by Docker. So
yeah, well, anyway, if we can just write down what it is so people don't have to go figure it out, that'd be great. I'm not saying it's a problem.
yeah,
But it'd be nice to just look into it to see where it lives. Not everything that's open source is attractive depending on how it's governed.
yeah,
It's true. Also,
it would really just be, I mean, it's the interface between the caller and the binary that's being exec. In my proposal, it's the auth config struct. It has username, password, email, which is a field that's being deprecated, identity token, registry token, and this other specification is basically a subset where it's like username, secret, one other field, and when you use a token, you just put token as the username, and then the token contents are the secret. So I think it's basically the same thing, but with the potential that we can use some tools that are already written, regardless of where it came from. It seems like it could be useful. But anyway.
Sounds pretty good. Two quick comments, and they're kind of related. One, can we make sure we get someone from the Azure side to take a look at this, just to make sure there's nothing weird from any Windows nodes? And then it's been a long time since I played with Windows, but I seem to remember they used to have a thing against sending passwords across the network, and as a result, they much preferred sort of challenge level protocols. And so we may just want to make sure that there's nothing, that we don't need to support some sort of challenge system.
Got it. Okay. Do you know who I can talk to?
We can get you a name. I know that Andrew and I have been trying to make sure we have key contacts with each of the cloud providers. So I'm sure we have a key contact for Microsoft. So let us just find that for you.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, probably Craig Peters.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, sounds good. Craig Peters.
Okay.
Awesome. So now that you seem to have your agenda set, Andrew, what was next? Or did we have a next?
I think you're muted, Andrew.
Thanks. Yeah, so there isn't a next that I put that I planned for, but there's a few topics we need to discuss. But for the credential provider, the kept deadline for 118 is 2 weeks, right? Or something like that. Do you feel like you have everything? Like, do you feel unblocked and good to like keep writing the KEP and you have the right people looking at it, or do you still need support from us to ping the right people and get the right folks looking at this?
I think so. My contacts right now that I'm sort of relying on are Mike Denise from SIG and Tim Alclair from SIG. So as long as they respond, I'll try to have that draft by the end of this week. And if I can't get them to engage, then I'll reach out to you, Andrew, and see if you can help me find other people to talk to.
Well, also, I mean, I think you probably have a better luck getting hold of Mike than I do, although I can certainly help. But if you're having any issues with Tim Alclair, let me know. I can probably make sure that gets some time.
Yeah, Tim would be the one that I'm not sure about, so I'll let you know.
I can probably make that happen.
Awesome.
Okay, and then I think like as a last resort, if none of them can approve, we can ask Jordan Liggett, just because I know he's been keeping an eye on the cloud provider extraction stuff. So if we kind of tell him like, hey, we need this approved so we can get the cloud providers out, I'm sure he'll put some time into reviewing that. So,
got it.
last resort.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and then CCM migration. Walter, do you remember where we left off with this before the holidays?
My memory was that we had just done proof of con. We were doing something on the proof of concept, and I thought we were just about ready to finalize the sort of, was it? So we wanted the proof of concept in a reasonable shape for the cap, but I feel like we're basically there, and one way or the other, the cap needs to land.
Yeah, I have. So where is it? I closed it, I think. Oh no, it's here. I think so. I think my biggest issue with I think where we left off was using config, right?
Yeah.
To let the KCM set the controllers. Yeah, I think like for me, like I want to do the work, but I also want to know that someone from API Machinery is going to actually review the CAD. So
I can make sure someone from API Machinery reviews the cap.
Walter, didn't you work also on a POC for a versioned config file?
Yes. So, and I think I handed that to Andrew. I don't know if Andrew folded it in.
yeah,
I can
did,
certainly
so
fold it in.
I hard coded like config.yaml here, and then
Well, the good news is that I think we've got enough to show what we want. I mean, the proof of concept basically works. I think we need to get the cap merged, and then we get another 6 weeks for the code. And the proof of concept, I think, we'll need to do some work, but we have some time on that.
okay. And to be clear, like with expectations, we're still, so for both Google and Amazon, we still need this, right? So like I'm asking because at least on my end, or at least on vSphere, or yeah, at least on vSphere, like I think the most sanest way to do this is still to like when you do an upgrade, you do an upgrade to a version that doesn't enable the cloud controllers. And so you lose the cloud controller loops on upgrade. But then as soon as you're done upgrade, then you apply the CCM, and then you get your controllers back. So during the upgrade window, you lose node controller, service controller, route controller. But I think that's a reasonable time window to let those controllers not run. And then you just apply CCM on top. Like that's, I think, is the the middle ground between like reliability and simplicity, and that's the route that I am going to advocate for. But if Google and Amazon and others still need this, like yeah, happy to keep pushing this forward.
So the issue on our end is that I don't want to name the number of nodes, but I have customers with, let's say, a large number of nodes.
Wait. Control plane nodes only. Control plane nodes only. So like upgrade the control
But
plane
it
nodes.
relates. So for the customers who have a large number of nodes and are HA, control plane the number of nodes affects the control plane upgrade time. And so for a large number of nodes and a HA cluster, my control plane upgrade, I think, can take 3 hours.
Why does maybe, I don't know if you can answer this, but why does the number of nodes affect the control plane upgrade time?
Because as you're doing the upgrades, you're slamming, as soon as one of the masters goes away, it resets all of the watches, lists, and other things from the nodes go to the new master, and you're really bogging down things like etcd and the new master's startup time. And so
And
it's just
that ends up making it take 3 hours.
well, you got to do it if it's an HA cluster. You got to do that 3 times.
Interesting.
I see.
So that's the absolute worst case scenario I've seen, but it's bad enough that I do not want to be in a world where I'm saying, yeah, you can't create new nodes for 3 hours. Like auto-scaling doesn't work for 3 hours. And maybe I'm misunderstanding Andrew's suggestion, but I think that is a consequence of Andrew's suggestion.
Yeah, it would mean, well, I think the more important controller would be service controller, right? Like you can't add nodes to service control to LDs.
Yeah, but I think I can't even add nodes, right? So auto.
Yeah, and you can add nodes. But like,
Can I ask you what number do you consider large? Are we talking 1,000, 3,000, 5,000? Give me a ballpark.
Something on that order, yeah. I don't think I'm allowed to say, but something on that order.
Okay, so over 1,000 then?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, because if we want to test ours, I want to know that might be something we haven't thought of, and I want to make sure that we look at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think sorry, go ahead.
Is it for our large clusters? I'll double check, but I don't think upgrades take that long. I think we would probably be okay with downtime of those controllers during the upgrade time. But if we're going to build this in anyway, obviously we'll take advantage of it because it's a better user experience. But I think that we would be okay with with Andrew's proposal. I'll double check though.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
that
the
sounds
nice
good.
thing with this is, I mean, if you want to use Andrew's proposal, this doesn't prevent you, right? This is just, it allows for a smoother transition if you want to do it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we should be clear with like with what the cluster at Edmunds SLO SLA is. Like, I just don't want to be in a situation where like all users convince themselves that they need this migration without knowing that if they just did the swap, like I said, their downtime is like negligible, but they're doing all this work for no reason. So like, we should really make it clear somewhere that like, use this if you have the 3,000 node cluster and you have very, very strict requirements on reliability, then use this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, absolutely. I think we should probably have that in the cap, saying, this is designed for these scenarios, starting with HA and 1 or 2 other things, and possibly even having it in the, I mean, it sounds like we're going to have a couple of flags on the controller manager, and we should probably reference this even there.
Okay, so I can work on this. I will spend all day tomorrow working on this, Captain. unless someone else here wants to work on it.
But so just to kind of, because I think I wasn't around when we were initially designing this. Like, did we build this off of some amount of user requirements, or are we like, is there an opportunity here before we spend the time implementing this to talk to some users who have these large clusters and long
I think
upgrade
like, so
times?
my impression, or at least my reasoning is that like GKs is a large enough user base for that, and I'm just assuming that Walter, like, if he says he needs it, like, probably
Sure.
needs it for GKE. Like, that's my assumption, and like that's a large enough user base to base it off of. But yeah, Walter can speak on.
Got it.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean,
Yeah.
have I talked to customers about this specifically? No, but every time I have an HA upgrade and anything happens where the customer can notice that an upgrade happens, my customer's response is, hey, why am I paying for HA if, you know, if I can see there's a problem during upgrade?
Yep, that makes sense. Cool.
Okay. Right. So I guess action item is Andrew to update chat by. What's a reasonable time I should have the kept updated by, Walter?
I would say next week. I mean, I'm not trying to make your life too difficult, but I just want to
Tuesday?
make sure that we have time to factor in any pushback we get.
Yeah. Okay, so I will do my best to get things updated for next week, Tuesday, and then hopefully that's enough time for you to poke whoever to get a review.
Can you give me a similar deadline for mine?
Gladly. Why don't we do both do next week Tuesday? And we can sync up on Slack. Cool. I think that's all, at least for me. Like, those are the two big things. Oh, API server proxy, anything for that?
Yeah, and mostly just updates on where we are. So the good news is we got the KEP merged last release. So the beta requirements are known and are done. I have two engineers, Jeffrey Yang and Chao Xu, who are both working on this frantically. So we are right now still planning on meeting the beta requirements for this coming release.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and we've actually added our own internal security review has caused us to add one or two new features that everyone seems fine with. So, as an example, one of the things that should be merging in the next day or two is we'll probably allow for API server talking to the local proxy server over UDS.
Okay.
And that'll be available. I mean, that's part of open source, so that's available to everyone.
Okay, cool. All right, so I gotta hop to another meeting, but is there anything else worth calling out? So I guess we'll sync on Slack on Tuesday.
Yeah, I have one thing I don't expect an answer on, but I just want to raise it. We really need to work out what we're going to do about E2E tests once we've removed cloud provider from Tree.
Agreed.
So,
One mountain at a time.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.